Well, good morning, friends. Hey, thanks for coming this morning. See a lot of folks here already, and I appreciate that. We have a great episode lined up for you today with our guest, Mark Bloom. Just take a moment to say hi to the folks, Megsy and Winston and Cammie. God, it's great to see you here. Sue Finelli, hey, my friend, I hope that you are doing well. Know that you've had some struggles this week, and thanks to everybody who poured out for Sue and for Mac Parhar. I want to give you a quick update on that, but quick. Kelly F.E., great to see you again. I haven't seen you in, minutes? Watching the other streams. No Despair Bear, Conspiracy, and GPE. Hey, it's great to see you, Lynn, Michelle, and let's see. Oh, hey, Don, informally hip. Great to see you as well. So many folks here today. Janet. And let's see, movable plane and we got all the usual suspects, of course. Yeah, so free Fokker, well stated, Don. All right, so as you probably already know, if you're not aware, you'll get up to date. Hey, Georgie. Yeah, you'll get up to date real quick here. So on the heels of returning from Flattoberfest, which occurred just a couple of weeks ago in Greensville, South Carolina, which I attended and served almost 200 cups of coffee there. Mac, Flat Earth Fokker has been around for a while now, and he is one of our leading proponents in going out and stating stating the truth for people, and he certainly is not shy about it. He ran into some trouble a while back with his yoga studio, and he rightly said that the beer bug is nonsense. As a result, they revoked his business license, shut him down. So when he came back from Flattoberfest, he did not do as they asked, which was to self-quarantine for 14 days, considering it, again, rightly so, as self-imprisonment. You quarantine sick people, not healthy people. So as they did this, he had a nosy neighbor who apparently got super butthurt about it and called the RCMP. And so he describes how he was just kind of returning home from work. Yep, it was his neighbor. And so they showed up, and there was 4 goons that grabbed him and had quite an experience. So I'm sure if you are more interested in all the details, you can certainly check out. He'll be doing a live stream later today. I'll probably join him for a moment to present to him some more of the donations that you guys have just generously and graciously provided for him. And again, these are done. I set it up as a legal defense fund, but really, as I told Mac, you can do with it what you want, right? You buy a big bag of pot, steak, I don't care. Do whatever you think is necessary. It's a gift for you, and as such, once it leaves our hands, it is yours to do with as you will. But we certainly support him for standing up for what he believes in and for free speech for everyone. And this is the principle. Even people who do not, accept the ideas of that they have been deceived in terms of the nature of our reality, the shape of the earth, or even about the beer bug itself. But anyone who stands up for the principles of free speech and the ability to speak truth is, they should be supporting Mac. So, hey, Nemo, glad that you're here. So anyway, we're going to present those to him today, and we're going to keep that donation site open. It's at not GoFundMe, but GoGetFunded.com, and I'll drop the link here in the chat. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Let's see. There we go. Found that. And let me get this for you here, and I'll just drop this in the chat if you want to drop there. So basically what happens is I give all of it to him, just comes to me, and then I send it on his way, and we can avoid some of the fees from PayPal and that sort of stuff. So anyway, we're going to do that. So without further ado, let me then come in and introduce my guest this morning. That's going to be Mark Bloom. And so Mark, we got introduced to him. He joined the Awakening Project, as many of you have, and he has churned out a variety of documents. He is prolific in doing thought experiments. A really bright guy from Liverpool, and he has presented some amazing thought experiments. One of them was presented to you in the form of, well, if you remember Red Fox, there was a document called Transposition. It was just a beautifully written, well thought out consideration of the nature of vibration and frequency, and some of the things that we speak of with some frequency here. If you'll forgive the pun. The jokes aren't going to get any better, I promise. Um, but we have been talking offline. Mark sends stuff over to me and to other folks in the community as well for us to kind of chew on and think over, and some brilliant stuff. So I have convinced Mark to join us today. I think this is his first appearance that I'm aware of on a podcast or a show of this kind. So, Mark, if you're still with us, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Mark, let's now you are now. I have told the folks you're an expert in semiotics and the study of symbology. We'll get more into that, but briefly, if you can, just walk us through a bit of your own awakening process. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into the wearing of the tinfoil hat.
I don't think I've been promoted to tinfoil hat wearer yet.
Oh, well, Faraday fedora.
This is my first time being public with it, so I suppose maybe I'll get it in the post soon.
Okay, right. Well, this is I'll confer upon you a honorary doctorate in the Faraday fedora. I'll place that upon your head. You have presented to us so many great ideas, and so appreciative already for the great work that you've done. So it's an honor to have you here. I'm so delighted. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, I'm from Liverpool, England. I'm 28 years old, so I'm one of them millennials that everybody loves.
No, I got to tell you, you're not one of those millennials. You may be part of their generation, but you're certainly don't come off to me as one of those guys. So
No, I don't really have social media. In fact, that was a big catalyst for me, sort of waking up. It was more of a process than like a landmark moment that made me go, oh wait, NASA are lying.
yeah
Which kind of surmises it. But it was more like a bit of a process to it, because I have always been a little bit sort of like an underlying cynicism I've had, because I've grown up in Liverpool. If anyone's ever been to Liverpool, everyone here has like a cynical sense of humor. In fact, if you watch any old John Lennon interview,
I was just going to bring up his name. He has that, I guess, he's supposedly dead. There seems to be some evidence that maybe that's not true, but wouldn't be surprising because they lie about everything. But yes, he did speak in very cynical terms about the nature of the power structure in the world.
Yeah, not to go on too much about him, I suppose, but he seemed like the one who, in the end, got fed up, and he's shown truth through his cynicism. But that really, when you're from Liverpool and you're seeing that, that's quite familiar, because that's kind of the tone of Liverpool, is a little bit of cynicism, but with humour. And then people find it entertaining, but they don't quite see the truth.
Yeah.
So my process was that, having the underlying cynicism, and then attending university, which I know a lot of people in the live chat are probably, and I agree, like you say, the higher the education, the greater the indoctrination.
Oh, certainly.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
but sometimes you do learn something which kind of comes back in retrospect, and you're like, wait a minute, how were they allowed to teach me that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not against being educated. I went to university myself, but it certainly increases the opportunity for indoctrination. That's what they are trying to do, and many people are unable to challenge the things that they're taught. They defend it as they're invested both emotionally, financially, and with time. So it is what confers upon them, again, their sense of meaning in the world. And so they're unwilling to let go of it. So I do say that, and it is kind of an axiom, but it certainly is not entirely true. Not everybody who has, gone to school or is educated, is asleep, right? So,
well, I was incredibly fortunate, because I was, I will say, I went to university in Liverpool. We have multiple universities, and I went to study music. I was attempting to get into university because I come from quite a poor household. So at the time, I realized I needed a lot of pressure was being put on me, basically, to try and bring money into the house. And I knew from trying to get a job for so long and failing, and not bringing money in. I thought a sure, safe way of doing it is going to university, receiving student loan. Over here works a little bit differently. We don't have to pay back the loan for unless we earn over something like 26k a year or something.
Wow.
Which, if I get a job earning 26k a year, I'll pay the 8% or whatever little fee it is.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, I realised that's a way of bringing money into the house. It's not ideal, obviously, burying yourself in debt, but it was the idea. But unfortunately, like, just as I got accepted into university, my parents separated. And so my mum was the one who moved out, and she was the working parent. And so then I was kind of stuck in the university framework, paying. I was basically keeping the roof over our heads at home, which is why I kind of had to stay at home, and I'm still here now. But things have changed now this year. Funnily enough, 1 week before the lockdown began, I got a portion of my money back.
Wow.
1 week before
Wow.
the lockdown occurred. So I got, like, about the first time in 10 years, I had freedom, and then 1 week later, the world said no.
Right.
Then elite.
Yeah.
It's like the Truman Show almost, isn't it?
It is. It's very, very much like that.
So I was really fortunate with my lecturers as well, because the music degree I was doing was 50% classical music, 50% popular music studies. And within popular music studies, we were being taught aesthetics, semiotics, and later on rhetoric, which, if you translate that into general terms, that's a bit like the trivium.
Yeah.
It's a bit like grammar, logic, rhetoric.
Yep.
It kind of like a modern adaptation of it.
So I assume then. I assume then that you do play music. Do you play an instrument?
I play guitar. Yeah. I was playing guitar in college. To get to university, over here it's a bit different. I finished school at 15.
Wow.
I was 15 when I finished school because I have a summer birthday, and then I went to college. It didn't work out so great the first time, and then I tried getting a job for a while, but people don't really want to employ 17-year-olds.
Right.
So that's when I figured I should go back to college to get to university, to have the money, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was at university studying popular music, I was receiving lessons in aesthetics, and right off the bat, my lecturers, my two main lecturers, they were like, "You're pretty good at this. Have you done this before?" And I was like, "I've never even heard of it." At the time, I didn't even know what the word aesthetics meant.
Right.
Which, it's the judging of value is what we had it explained to us as. And the method of the lesson was basically bringing up like a scene from a movie or a music video, and or like an artwork like the Mona Lisa or something, and trying to pick out the value judgments that are clearly made to establish a foundation.
Mm-hmm. So the values. Both that they are embracing and those that they're putting forward, right? So there's both sides of that.
The example I always use is, everyone knows this already, when they walk into a Quentin Tarantino movie, there are some things they expect to see that they wouldn't accept from, say, a Steven Spielberg movie,
right,
and vice versa.
Yeah, and that
is the aesthetic.
Yeah, and one thing that many people are not aware of, generally, I think more people in the truth community have become increasingly aware of it. But when you see things on film, almost without exception, everything that is there is put there very intentionally. Not only that it is there, but where you see it and when you see it is all very, very intentionally done.
Especially in a Quentin Tarantino movie or a Stanley Kubrick.
I was just going to mention him.
I mean, so that's what we were doing. We were basically they were attempting to teach us aesthetics and semiotics visually with movies and music videos, so that we could transfer that knowledge to just audio, because just audio is a bit more specific, it's a bit difficult, because most people aren't used to that. We take in most of our information visually, don't we?
Visually, yeah. And so for those who aren't aware of the term or not familiar with it, define semiotics for us.
Semiotics is signs or symbols or signifiers which connote something more. So, like, I guess in this community, a lot of people, like, someone was in Rose's chat the other day calling her a Satanist because 777 in the context of I think Hebrew numerology, they said,
It looks kind of the
is
same. Yeah, it's so
indicative of
silly.
Satan. So they were like, therefore you are worshipping Satan. Well, that's an example of semiotics of in the Hebrew numerology system. I don't know if this is correct because I didn't go and verify it, but this guy, according to this guy, 777 is indicative of Satan. So it's like
What?
777 connotes Satan,
Yeah,
but
his
what
point.
he was ignoring was the context, which he had even pointed out himself. The context is in the Hebrew numerology system.
Right. In fact,
He was taking it out of
complete, not
context.
only out of context, but his is that that the numbers 7, the what is in Arabic numerals 7 looks like kind of a 6 in Hebrew. And so,
Right.
he then transposed again 777 to be 666, and something completely not the same, right? And it is very much like people who take the phonemes of words and then try to make it something else. I mean, and I've seen this from everybody in the truth community to those, if, for example, in religion, I've heard pastors even say that forgiveness means to give as before. I'm like, no, it doesn't. That's not the etymology at all, right? They're confusing things and making things up, and some people really make a stretch on these things. So it does take some education and some critical thinking to tear these things apart, and that's certainly from your description and what I understand of what you've done is really at the heart of what you've done, going through the ontology and epistemology of understanding these things at a deeper level. So as you kind of look at the ideogrammatic parts of it and see which things are laid out to represent other things and have deeper symbolism. And so I find it fascinating that you're doing it as an audio only.
Yeah,
That's a really
it's
interesting
intense
take
as
on it.
well.
Yeah.
It got intense because this was sort of, I only realized retrospectively after I finished university and I had a lot more time on my hands and sort of seeking employment. And then towards the end of last year, I became quite physically and mentally unwell for a little while. And in one sweep, I lost pretty much all of my friends. So, like
Mm.
most people here, probably relate to that. You
Yeah.
have more time on your hands, so
And,
you start,
was
I
it
don't know, sitting
specific?
down and watching Owen Benjamin for hours.
Right? Was that specific or related to your change in worldview, or was there other?
It's indirectly related. The
Okay.
situation was I've always been very uh, introverted, so I've not had like a large group of friends. I currently do still have my two best friends who are married to one another, who have three children, who are my godchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more like family. But friends who I could go out and spend time with or talk to, they all um, kind of turned on me. It was a bit of a vicious thing that happened because I realized one of my friends was telling a lot of lies. You know, when you notice one lie and then you start noticing more, but they were all very small and insignificant and they didn't really change the outcome of anything. And I thought maybe something's going on, so I decided to bring it up with her. And it spiraled out of control to a point where I didn't even know why this person was doing this. And then I learned the hard way the meaning of narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that kind of my friends got manipulated against me, even though I introduced them to this person. And one of them in particular was a bit like a brother to me. We grew up together. We went to high school. We had been on holiday with his family because he's an only child. I'd been on kind of taken on holiday with him because he was an only child. And this kind of went out of control, and it culminated in me thinking, okay, I've just got to get away and separate myself from all that. Like, I think a lot of people in the chat have expressed similar experiences where they've been in situations, whether it's with family or friends, where they realize I need to cut this out now because it's bad for my health.
Yeah.
So I finally made that decision, and then that's when I had a couple of near blackouts last year where I genuinely thought I was dying because I could feel everything inside of me shutting down.
Wow.
And the borders of my vision were closing in, and I was on my feet as well. I wasn't like lying down. I was standing. I was in the bathroom so I could see myself in the mirror, and like everything tightened up. I looked like a skeleton, but because I'm quite stubborn in the face of danger, I decided to say no and keep myself awake, try to keep myself conscious. And I did. I managed to for about 10 or 15 minutes fighting what was going on, and then it went away. And a couple of weeks later, it happened again. So then I decided I need to start listening to what Crow, Jason, and Owen are saying about health tips. And then that's when I got my hands on like apple cider vinegar and I think Owen, but I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but turpentine, pine gum spirits, I suppose.
Yeah. That's
Right.
pretty remarkable. I mean, certainly going through a lot. And again, I'll just say now, Mark, if there's anything that you're not comfortable with discussing or covering, you're absolutely feel free to just pull back and say, yeah, I'll skip over that or whatever. It's
If I
fine.
share too much,
Then
tell me
no,
not to.
no. I mean, again, whatever you're comfortable with. We're all friends here. But it's all about your comfort level. And so if there's any boundaries that you want to just say, "Man, I don't want to go there," that's fine.
Yeah,
So
I'm fine so far. I think like I'm gauging what I'm saying based on what I've seen other people saying in the chat as well. I know a lot. That's why I keep saying that a lot of people have been through a similar thing. I engage with the live chat and I read quite a lot of the comments, and it's almost like seeing the same story over and over again. Not in a demeaning kind of way, but in a kind of it's impressive that we're the minority, but we've all got very similar experiences and all wound up in the same place.
yeah, that's one of the things I found really remarkable about this whole awakening project, Mark, is finding out these things. Again, one of the things is that people often, nearly universally, they had to come to a place of being isolated. There was some major change in their life that gave them
Oh
the
yeah,
opportunity to look in these things and think them through, which certainly highlights the idea that they keep us very busy, right? So that we don't have time to really
yeah.
think
You
about
need
it.
more space to think. That's why I was saying at the beginning. I suppose I removed myself from social media because an old friend from university, someone I used to go to university with, she messaged me out of the blue and was telling me that her social media account had been hacked, and she thought mine was too. And then I went and looked in to see if you can find out where people have logged in from and if people have logged into your account. So I did, and I found out, yeah, and we exchanged the location IP address and found out it was the same individual, and
Mm.
it happened to be. Or I don't know for certain, so I can't make any positive claims. But allegedly, could it be? It was this person who had stole my friends from me and
Oh man.
cut me out, and this was a good few months after I completely cut contact with them. So for even like a Microsoft account, which shows nothing,
Hmm.
like I still have a Microsoft account because you need it to like log into like Skype is
Yep.
owned by Microsoft
Yep.
or so I need that, and then so I had to set up all extra measures to make sure that doesn't happen and quit all of social media. So then I had so much time on my hands. Like I said, I went to Owen Benjamin.
Hmm.
I don't know how I found Owen in the first place. I know he's a comedian. I know he's quite famous in America, and he's also exiled. And I started watching when he was sitting in his garden drinking beer next to the fire and sort of telling the world that Ashkenazi Jews own everything. And this was before I realized the origin of my surname.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting thing there. One of the things that you mentioned, I don't want to let it go too far, is that how you also came to realize about narcissism, a malignant
Oh yeah,
narcissist. And one of the things that I've been so grateful for is Beth Martins, who is in the chat, makes a brilliant addition to our community, because one of the things that happens, I think, when the scales begin falling off your eyes and you begin to see things in a critical way and more clearly, is that also the emotional relationships that we have with those around us, we do, as you say, begin to do some better self-care, and we understand better when people are manipulating us, because we see it in the media, we see it from the mainstream, and we realize, hey, they're manipulating me. And suddenly this all becomes so much more clear. And that's why I say Beth is such a great addition to our community, because having sort of the background in the coaching that she does, and to be able to see things from these particular ways is super helpful. And there's a number of other people in our community as well, but I know that she's here right now, so I just want to say, hey, thanks for that. But this is something, again, I see over and over again with the various people who bring their own skills into this community. But we've all gone through very similar processes, as you've said, in terms of it is a process, and as we begin to close down or have closed down for us our, our relationship, our community, and then we find kind of this other community online, right? But everybody sort of
Yeah.
feels isolated and alone and a little bit afraid of speaking out because of the opprobrium out there and the ostracization. It's a fascinating thing, but again, one of the reasons that I do this is to help build community between the people that are here, right? Because it is.
Yeah, I mean, I realized when I was spending so much time sort of watching Owen Benjamin, who he might be the great motivator of our time, by the way. I think he might be Hollywood's leftover cocaine.
Shout out to Crow 777.
He like sort of the way he kind of insults his audience, but in a motivational way, like "Don't be a special boy."
Yeah.
Something about it, even though I didn't agree with everything he was saying, which no one agrees with everything anyone's saying. I was like, there's something to him because he's very honest. And then he recommended Crow 777, and so
Yeah.
then I heard you there, and obviously I'd heard about Rose there because they mentioned Rose, because Rose and Jason are boyfriend girlfriend.
Yep.
So then I think around March, around when the lockdown started, I think I'd just received some of my money back, and I was like over the moon. Like, I've got a bit of freedom. I can look at. I've got a bit of money to tie me over to find a job and move out and all that business. And then 1 week later, the lockdown occurred, and I thought maybe it's not the best time to move to a different place where nobody knows me and I'm not surrounded by community who will look out for me.
Right.
So then I started watching your streams and Rose's streams, and then I was kind of keeping an eye on the live chat, and then sort of integrated from there. And then in the end, I picked up the courage to email you and Red Fox as well. I don't know if Red Fox still listens to these, but if you do, Red Fox, thank you.
Yeah.
You went on a limb a bit presenting my work, considering that I was just there. Emailed him out of the blue, and he was like really all for it and was like, I'll present this now, and he had it recorded within a few hours.
Yeah, and I think we all miss Red and wish him well. I hope to see.
Hibernating.
Yeah, I hope to see him again soon. I pick up a sniffs of him here and there.
Yeah,
but I know he is laying,
I was hoping he
low.
would show up to Flattoberfest out of the blue, just make a guest appearance.
That would have been. I would have recognized his voice immediately.
Yeah,
he's
that would have been great.
Yeah, he is inimitable for sure. But yeah, again, you're hitting on many of these major themes of, how we all have very similar processes. And as you said, one of the things I really love about this community is how we all have started from such different places. And this was highlighted really well in my conversation with Nachiketa, right? Is that just couldn't be more different in his background and mine, for example. And yet we all end up in sort of the same parking lot. And it's like, wow, I really want to know what's inside that building, right? We all showed up with a similar, just using our senses and coming to some of these conclusions, starting from very different places and in many different processes and ways to get there. But we all come to these similar places, and that is not only really encouraging, but I think also tends to highlight the validity and the veracity of what it is that we're coming to. The odds that so many people would come to similar conclusions with so many different starting points and so many different ways to approach it seems very unlikely indeed that it would happen without there being some veracity. Is Crow likes to say a there.
Yeah, it's like it's a bit like school but more fun. I found joining these streams.
Yeah, self-guided school.
Everything everyone talks about is like sort of adjacent to what your interests are. Sort of like if there's something I know about, it kind of contributes to what something someone else knows about, and then you start to piece everything together and see the picture.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of good advice and information from people in the live chat and from Cami.
Yeah, and puzzle
I
pieces.
don't Google anything anymore. I just go to the Cami search engine on
Yeah,
Skype.
no, that's perfect. Cami is a great resource, and I love the way she thinks it is so similar to my process. I call it a pachinko machine, right? It just bounces all over the place. But the way that I kind of do pattern recognition, I can see things that sometimes other people can't because it just lights up in a certain way, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And for me, when it came to investigating, for example, the shape of the Earth, I was so so irritated that I hadn't looked into it before. Right? I was just like, oh, how could
Like I
I?
still haven't looked into it properly. Like I agree wholeheartedly. NASA are lying, but at the same time, I've never really cared for NASA. I didn't grow up a NASA fanboy. There was never really any. I didn't feel like I was cutting a limb off,
Yeah.
turning away from that. So as soon as it was basically as soon as Owen Benjamin said about the 8 inches per mile square thing, my first thought was I've seen Ireland from Liverpool.
Yeah.
I googled it and I found out Dublin is directly across the Irish Sea, 68 miles. So
Yeah, you instantly, again, basic math. And I kind of thought the same way. I was like, when I started looking into these things and seeing Joshua Nowicki's photograph across the lake at Chicago, I went, that's not possible. And then I started looking, I had some background into and understood, I do a lot of work with wave propagation. So doing light and sound, it's not that much different, really. There are different frequencies, certainly, and they have some different properties, but the way they propagate is very similar. And so I was like, okay, refraction. And I was just like, I know I'm doing the math wrong. I'm not carrying the one. I'm missing something, right? But it just became more and more clear. And then as I began to look into the history of the quote science of it, I realized everything was not only built on presupposition, but they went through extraordinary lengths to hide the truth and to reframe.
Also, the counter argument isn't very good, is it? So far, I think, because I've not jumped from one dogma to the other. I've not gone, okay, it's not a globe, it's definitely flat. Like, I'm not there. I'm at the point of, there's grabble going on. So, because to an extent, I understand rhetoric because I've been educated a little in rhetoric. I understand when I see the counter argument, like any of the globe versus flat debates, or when Rose does flat smacking.
Right.
I always find that the counter argument of the globe, like from an objective point, like I don't really have a dog in the fight because I'm not that. I'm not going up to space, or I don't think anyone is, but I'm not going that high to find out what shape the Earth is. I'm just, my immediate environment is what I care about. I don't really care about the entire shape. I understand the importance to people like, say, Dave Weiss. I think what he's doing is quite admirable. But for me personally, I feel really comfortable now knowing that these people are lying and these people are trying to find the truth. I'm quite happy with that setup. So when I see these arguments being put into videos and people are getting really vicious, and I notice that the globe argument objectively, and this isn't me just trying to put anyone who believes in the globe down, objectively their argument is, pardon my French, but it's piss poor.
Yeah, it's weak. Yeah.
They just say, "Oh, you're stupid," and I'm like, anyone who understands rhetoric, or anyone who doesn't, knows that that's a really weak argument. You can't just say, "Oh, that's stupid." You can't say like, "Well, I've seen Ireland from Liverpool. That's 68 miles. That completely breaks your model."
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, "Oh, you're stupid if you don't understand this crazy scientific equation that NASA just pulled out of the butt." Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I mean,
that doesn't make you stupid.
Yeah, and you
have like a really high level PhD level of information that's probably false doesn't make you stupid.
Probably false. And again, you point out a couple of really terrific things here, and that is, one, while again you agree with some of the stuff, and you take again a few basic things and go, yeah, your arguments are poor, and so I can dismiss what you say as lies, and that's kind of where I come from, right? Is that I'd say I'm a geometric agnostic, and that I don't know what it is, but I know what it's not because I can disprove your lies. It's pretty basic, right? I can say that.
But it's also the experience of having been lied to. That friend I was talking about, who that's what probably really catalyzed me joining this kind of community where there are like-minded people, because as soon as you realize how someone is lying to you, and that they are definitely lying to you, no matter how much they try to gaslight, you see all of a sudden, once you realize you're experiencing gaslighting technique, you then start seeing that being used in like these debates or on the news or in the media, celebrities saying stupid things like, if you don't let like trans children be a thing from the age 3 onwards, then you're a bigot or whatever.
Exactly. You're now transphobic. It's like really the word phobic. Yeah, the word phobic means to be afraid. I'm not afraid of it. I just don't agree with it. And so, they use these techniques, and as I was saying before, once you begin to see it, and this is one of the things that I have said before about our community is that while we call it the truth community, it really to me more is the lie busting community. We don't
just
necessarily
identify lies.
we
It's
don't
also
necessarily.
the framework. It's like when you learn the structure of a song, like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. You automatically know, oh, that's a pop song. So like when someone gives you the same structure narrative in the form of a conversation, you're like, oh, that's a lie.
Exactly.
It's how the news works.
They use exactly
Stories, the hero's journey.
Yep,
If
exactly.
someone, like right now, have you got your new emperor yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you got your new emperor yet?
No. In fact, they're playing a script, and that's interesting because Ceiling Fan Man and I were discussing this even before it happened. That again, once you begin to see the way the way that they put the scripts together, you begin to recognize and identify some of the same characteristics. Again, it's the hero's journey, right? You identify some of these plot devices, and so we were talking a couple of weekends ago. I managed to make it out to Ceiling Fan Man's place, a beautiful place out there, and had a lovely time. But we were talking about sports ball, right? There's a team here in Seattle that plays football, and we're able to break down the narrative, and there's about 6 different ways a game will go, and you can tell almost immediately from the way it's being called and the way it's being played. You can immediately tell right within the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game the way it's going to work out. They announced it, so they said Biden is in, but see that's the thing is that now what we called is that they're going to provide ample evidence for both sides that there is fraud and cheating going on. So both sides are going to feel that they're cheated. And even though now that they announce Biden, right? So what's going to happen though is there's going to be lawsuits. And
so has Biden won? Do you mean?
Well, that's what they're saying now is that they say that Biden has a path. But already Cheeto Jesus has already announced that he's not going to relinquish and he's going to take him to court. And so he's not planning to step down anytime soon. And so this is going to go back and forth. And both sides are going to, again, feel that they are cheated and that it's illegitimate. Right? This is all leading toward, the divide.
It also helps because it was so narrow. The last time I looked at it, they were neck and neck. And I was like, this is like every Hollywood movie I've ever seen.
Exactly. It follows a script.
The hero and the villain are just neck and neck. Who's going to win? How is the hero finally going to... Yeah, it was the hero's journey, the ending to every hero's journey movie. I was like, how's no one familiar with this? You've watched Marvel movies the past 10 or 15 years.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. And this is what, again, what I find remarkable and terrific about this community, right, is we begin to see these things. Everybody, again, no one in this community got scared over the beer bug, right? Because we all saw exactly what it was. That it was a nonsense. Now, not everybody has a medical degree or, has a background in epidemiology, but we immediately know the smell of the lies and the way that they're putting it out. It's like that your narrative doesn't make any sense. And then the way they guard it. And they always play this, methinks the lady does protest too much, right? we see it over and over that when the fact checkers come in, you know that they're protecting a narrative. And so it becomes...
People wearing a mask telling you that you're paranoid. I'm like, I'm paranoid.
Projection much? Yeah, exactly.
Got a hazmat suit on?
Yeah. Exactly. So it is, again, this is one of the things that I really enjoy about this community and why so many times now I have come across the basic premise that as crazy as the crazier something seems, the more likely it is to have some foundation in truth because they have adjusted the narrative in such a way, like, again, when we first bumped into the idea of a flat earth, it's like, that's the craziest shit I've ever heard of. But when you look into it, it's like, oh, okay, it's not crazy.
Yeah.
Most people...
Even if you don't agree with it, it's objectively not crazy because it matches up with your 5 senses, or at least vision.
It presents itself that way, certainly. And their claim is that it defies all of your senses. So they have the extraordinary claim, and the burden of proof then is on them. And they always reverse that burden of proof. So in a similar way, right? So every time that we begin to see these narratives, then they do the same things, right? They protect the narrative in the same way, and they use appeal to authority, appeal to consensus, right? Appeal to incredulity. But why would they lie? Right?
Well, when people have been saying that to me recently, my response has been, they told us Jimmy Savile was a very charitable man who was good with children.
Yeah. Yeah,
No
exactly.
one rebuts it because no one's going to try and defend what Jimmy Savile did. Or in Liverpool, I don't know if you're familiar with the Hillsborough disaster,
No,
but
not really.
well, the Hillsborough disaster was like a football game where the authorities allowed too many crowd members in,
Mm,
and so the stadium became overcrowded
I
and people
remember it
got
now. Yeah,
crushed, and
yeah,
quite a lot of people were killed.
I remember it now. Yeah.
And the newspapers and everything. This was in the 80s, but the newspapers and the media and the government for almost 25 years covered up who
Yep.
was responsible for it and blamed it on the Liverpool fans. So Liverpool in particular, this is probably why in Liverpool we've got the biggest restrictions at the minute that Britain have had so far, and we've been on a city lockdown for a few weeks because apparently we've been naughty and not been following any of the restrictions so far. So they decided to remedy that by giving us more restrictions. But I find that a lot of people here in Liverpool generally, like you see people wearing masks, but most people wearing masks don't really want to. They don't really believe it. They're just doing it for the convenience of being able to walk in and out of a shop. And I think it's partially because of the Hillsborough disaster, people already understand that 25 years worth of lying from the media and the government means that's multiple prime ministers and both political parties
Yeah,
agreed on one thing, aside
exactly.
from Jimmy Savile.
Well,
They agreed on that as well for 40 years.
exactly, and this is one thing that I've been saying most recently, and this is exactly the issue with Mac Flat Earth Fokker, right? Is that the powers that be they don't cut out the tongue of a liar. Right,
Mm.
they cut out the tongue of those who are telling truth that is dangerous to their power structure. So they don't care about somebody who lies. They care about somebody who's telling the truth, and that is why the nature of freedom of speech and the ability to speak, even if it's even if it's patently ridiculous, then something will show itself to be thus, and then no one need worry about it. Right. So when they come out and say, "Oh, you're spreading disinformation and dangerous information about this beer bug," well, again, the reason that it's dangerous is because their narrative sucks. It would be if it was patently ridiculous, no thinking adult would consider it. This is what we can see is when they come back and make a big stink about it, you can immediately tell. What the game is, and that's again, that's why I think more and more this community is getting really good at tearing apart the lies, and that's when again how it's been so delightful to me to see different things, a number of different aspects that I would have never thought to really look into. Right, the idea of like mud flood or mud fossil. Right, these some of these ideas that come out, which
Yeah.
are fascinating, but when you look at them, it goes against the narrative. Right, so your first instinct is what, but when you look at it, almost immediately you can tell the narrative that they have is definitely a lie, which means, okay,
Yeah.
so why are they lying? What are they covering up? And then you can go back, kind of reverse engineer it. I love this whole idea, and the world becomes an amazing place of discovery all of a sudden, right? It becomes
Also, because they communicate through, like we were going to talk about, was signs and symbols.
that's
Like
what I was
a
just
lot of
gonna
the
turn. I
time,
was just gonna turn back around to that. Yeah, I didn't want to drift
Crow
too
kind
far.
of uses a good way of. Crow actually is somewhat. I don't know if he knows if he's trained in semiotics at all, but I found the reason I realized what I was taught was applicable to everything, really, not just music or popular culture. It was from listening to Crow because I realized he was using etymology and phonetics and numerology and the process he was going through to say this means this means this means that, like it gives this result, you go from this to this. So I was like, wait, that's a bit like that is semiotics. It's this symbol, it leads you down a chain of connotations which leads to a result, and then you kind of find a bit of truth.
Well,
And I thought that's exactly what I was taught.
yeah. Okay. So walk us through a simple example of that. So give us an example so
Uh,
people can better understand this process and how these symbols and ideograms get used.
Well, the basic one I was taught in order to understand it was a traffic light. So when you're in the context of being in the driver's seat of a car at a traffic light, when the red light shows, red means um, sets off a chain of connotations in your head, which would be red indicates danger,
Danger.
danger indicates do not proceed, do not proceed means stop. So within a split second, your brain is taken in the context of being in a car and at a traffic light, and then in that circumstance, the red light means stop. It goes through that chain of connotations in a split second. So we're engaging with this all day, every day. It's and you can see how that could be used on a much higher level. It's much like the way Crow would talk about spells, or maybe Owen Benjamin. I might be misquoting. Owen Benjamin was talking about spells, I think, and he said if you say red ball or blue ball, most people will think, like, they'll picture that in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a connotation to the image, isn't there? So your brain is going through a process of using a symbol to go through a process to reach a result. And then when you apply that to, say, what you, Rose, Crow, and Jason all talk about when you think about numerology, this number in the say the Freemasonic framework, this number means this.
Yeah, and to me,
There's still a symbol.
I love how deep this rabbit hole really does go, all right? Because I've always been fascinated, for example, with linguistics and this idea, for example, that most of linguistics relies on ideograms. So the idea that it creates a picture in your head, and now you're using your language to try to describe an idea. But because of linguistic determinism, some of those ideas get specifically created because of the language. So, for example, if you say, use the word bank, right? What's the first word that comes to your mind? Well, for many people, right, that would be where you put your money. But for a fly fisherman, that's going to be where he enters the water on the bank of the river.
Right.
For a billiards player, right, he's thinking of his next shot, right? So we have a variety of different ways that you can look at that, depending on your perspective and your background. So
depends on the context.
Exactly.
This is the piece that weirdly that I wanted to talk about a bit more was I was originally, I think I told you over Skype, the process I was taught in was like a 3-parter.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught aesthetics, then semiotics, and then rhetoric. And I realized retrospectively it was a way of deprogramming, because the first thing you're taught in aesthetics is the judging of value. So you, through analyzing something, picking out, say, a Tarantino movie, what are the values he places into his movies that stick throughout all of them, creating the Tarantino aesthetic. You have a foundation then. So then if you want to semiotically analyze his work, it's made much easier because you have the context, because you've figured out the aesthetic. So you have that foundation. But I've found that quite a lot of people, and this isn't intended to be offensive at all, a lot of people in this community were missing the foundation part, the context. A lot of the time, not everyone, but a lot of people miss out the context. Like I mentioned, the person who accused Rose of being a Satanist the other day, he pointed out the context, the Hebrew numerology, but then he completely ignored the context and pulled it out of the context and placed it elsewhere. And so if you don't understand the aesthetic or the context, then what does a crucifix mean if you just don't have context? Right, there are so many things. Like I have a necklace on which has a 8-pointed compass, the Viking compass. I think it's Vegvisa, and my uncle saw it and he was like, "Oh, you have the occult 8-pointed compass? Isn't that like?" I think he referred to it as being like satanic or something or other. And I was like, "No, it's the Norse compass. It's
like the swastika, right? Like the swastika.
Maybe in another context."
Yeah, the swastika was an ancient symbol for good fortune, good luck, powerful, positive intentions. It is represented in the sky with the Big Dipper as it goes. As it goes around.
I think it was Aryan, wasn't it? And it's on an ancient Aryan tablet.
That's correct. And because it was twisted on its side and used in an inverse twisted way, so twisted in both aspects, twisted at a 45-degree angle and shown backwards, but now it is verboten. Right, you can't show.
I wonder why that happened. I wonder who made that decision. I wonder if it really was me and Mr. Mustache.
No, I don't think it was, and I think again with many things, and I mean this is just a speculation. Of course, I don't have much evidence to back this up, other than instincts based on prior stuff. But it would seem to be it's such a powerful positive symbol. The way to get rid of it is to turn it negative and say no, you can't use that anymore, because it
also ties over information, like valuable information. When you think about Ursa Major, and so it indicates the 4 seasons.
The sky clock.
The positioning of Ursa Major around a North Star is the swastika. So if you think that's a really old and unique symbol that passed on the information of the seasons, which helps with farming and cultivating, and through what we now call pagan people would have passed on this information from like father to son, mother to daughter, with just one symbol. You've got all this information, so that symbol in itself
Exactly.
is a good example of semiotics.
Exactly.
It's one thing that represents so much more,
and especially with
it's like containing a ton of information in like a little container, but it all fits, like a TARDIS.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, again, with the sky clock, that's a terrific example because throughout time immemorial, it has been used by every culture to better understand the world in which we live, from everything from planting and harvesting to when is the best time to procreate, right? Everything. And yet now, in, again, the modern, ultra, hyper materialistic world, they make it, foo-foo and ridiculous and silly woo that we have, astrology that's just dumb. And yet, again, every major world leader certainly has used aspects of astrology. They again, those at the top, they keep that information for themselves. And so it is, again, it's verboten among most, Christian society that because it's a form of divination. And it's like, again, if you're... yeah, exactly. Information itself is in no way dangerous. It helps understanding. It's the application of that and intention that is everything.
Yeah.
Right. And
I was going to say it is intention based. Like, again, I'll keep quoting Crow and Jason, but they hit it on the head every time when they say everything is about intention. So when you think about the intention behind the swastika before it was the swastika, it was a very positive symbol. But then from the 1940s onwards, it's not exactly seen as a positive symbol anymore, really, is it?
Exactly. And there are
because of someone else's intent.
And so many things like that. For I have said numerous times that what's contained within Latin as a language. They keep telling us it's a dead language, and it died out in like 150 A.D. And yet, of course, most of the major treatises in any sort of academic sense up until the late 19th century was all written in Latin. And when you study it even a little bit, what you realize is there's so many higher-minded thoughts that are contained in phrases and idioms and axioms. That again, if you take that away from people, they would not have. I mean, well, let's reverse that. If you gave it back, right, people would grow up with these sayings, right? So we have cliches in English, stitch in time saves nine, or don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, all these in Latin are super high-minded phrases that would make you think and connect you to yourself, right, and to the spiritual aspect of the world. And they try to kill the spiritual aspect, so they had to kill that language. It's fascinating. Hey, Nathan at Commercial Sound and Video, thank you so much. That's very much appreciated. You guys are awesome. So, you're touching on, again, all these themes. So take us through a little bit deeper into some of the aspects of semiotics and symbolism that you found within popular music.
Well, once we had aesthetics down, it was easy to understand because in music, that's really transferable because music already does it for you. You have genres.
Yeah.
So they've made it simple for us there. You've got a genre. You understand what is key to a genre, like country music. You wouldn't gasp if you heard an acoustic guitar, would you?
Right.
Or good harmonies. Something like that, or, singing about your dog.
But you might if you heard bagpipes in rock, although AC/DC did it. So.
Right. Well, there's a word for that. This is some of the terminology which I've been exposed to, which I think I sent you
You did? Yeah.
The names of the authors, but I don't think they're actually books. That a lot of them are taken from papers or proposed books, like they're working towards it, or sometimes it's a conference. So these terminologies are sort of not really known. I presume someone like Tavistock would be fully aware of these words, but you mentioned like bagpipes being in rock music. So rock music would be the home style, but then you have a genre synecdoche. So genre synecdoche, that is something which isn't a part of the home genre, but it's being used within it. So instead of a guitar solo, you have a bagpipe solo in a rock song. So the genre is still rock, but the bagpipe solo would be a genre synecdoche because it's sort of referring
outside that.
to something external to the home genre.
Right.
So it's like it's semiotics, but in a bit more of a practical way.
Yeah, and that's
Right, that's audio semiotics, or
one
part of
thing
it.
that I found fascinating. A guy named Daniel Levitin, who I weirdly worked with in a professional sense prior through my relationship with the audio industry. He was not only a producer, but he became a neuroscientist. And
Right.
yeah, right. And so he wrote a book called "This Is Your Brain on Music," that specifically addresses the neurological relationship with music. And one of the fascinating things about music is that it bypasses the limbic system. It's the only
Yeah.
one of our senses that does so, and so we don't judge it when it first comes in. Now, of course, our taste in music, it does cycle back through the limbic system, and so we can decide if we like it or what its meaning is, and
Yeah.
do the aesthetics. But initially, it goes straight to the music center. We're hardwired for music, and so some of these things are fascinating. One of the things that makes a good song memorable, for example, is that there are, as you say, there are rules, right, in a genre. You learn the specific rules of types of music, even in Western music, right? Because we have the
The
12,
aesthetic again. Yeah.
exactly,
The foundation.
the 12 semitones and that sort of thing. So when you do something that breaks that rule in an interesting way, not too far out, you can't go crazy with it, but it's that breaking of the rule that makes it surprising and unique and interesting. So these are fascinating ideas, and the same sort of things psychologically happen in a variety of sociological aspects as well. Things that we find interesting are things that follow the rules to a point and then break the rules, right? But music
Yeah.
specifically does this. And so I was, again, fascinated by your study in combining the idea of semiotics and symbolism with music, especially in the audio only. That's a just, again, I
And
want to hear
especially
more
in
about
popular
this.
music.
Yeah, I want to hear.
For anyone who isn't familiar with the term popular music in a broad sense, it's just recorded music, music made to be recorded. It's a way of differentiating between classical music and what I call popular music. It's not just Beyonce, Rihanna, Lady Gaga pop music. It's say jazz, all the genres, country, blues, everything. That's popular music because there's a different intention. So classical music obviously wasn't written to be recorded because they couldn't. They would that would be written for maybe domestic performance or in a hall, like a music hall
Or in the
something
context of
along
an
those
opera
lines.
or the
Yeah,
background for something else. Sure.
opera. Yeah.
Yeah.
But whereas popular music, there's obviously a different intention. It's going on record, so to get radio play, your songs would be shorter, so that automatically limits the time frame of what the recording is. And then as soon as you limit the time frame, you're having to figure out a different a different structure. So then obviously we're going to get to the point where now every song follows verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, because even that in itself is it's so familiar now that there's something pleasing about it. This is a psychological thing or maybe neurological, but when you're familiarized with something like that, like a particular structure in a song, you already know where the chorus is going to come in. You already know where the bridge is going to come in.
Yep.
So because your brain subconsciously is predicting that when it does happen, you're getting the same kind of like a dopamine hit like you would from a notification coming through on Facebook.
Exactly.
So it's addictive.
That actually happens to me. I grew up again around music. My mother was in a traveling professional gospel band, as a little kid, and I grew up around the sound guy. But when I hear a variety of different music, especially genres of music that I was familiar with growing up, I can hear a song that I've never heard before and anticipate where the changes are going to come and what the changes are going to be. And it does, as you say,
playing in a
provide
band as well.
provide that dopamine hit, right? And that's something that happens when you play with a certain group of musicians for a long period of time. You get this sort of it becomes sort of psychic. You know exactly what the drummer's going to fill.
Yeah.
You know what the bass player is going to make that change. And when you can anticipate it and get ahead of it, that is one thing that I began to love as I began to develop as a musician. And going from, this kind of an ongoing, I don't know, sort of joke, but it's an axiom as well, that the difference between an amateur and a professional musician is the amateur musician is trying desperately to sort of keep up with the changes and find the one, whereas the professional musician is 4 bars ahead head, right? Trying to play into the next break so he can lead it, and that is absolutely true. And there's just something beautiful about that. That is, it's really amazing, almost at times distracting because you start listening to it. Right? You get 4 bars ahead, and then you start listening, and like, oh, whoops, catch up.
And these things are absolutely known by the people who run the industry. The things I'm talking about, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if somehow I got a job in a place like Tavistock and they were like, oh we've been doing that since the 1920s when we started putting things on record or whatever. Yeah. Like it's like, yeah, that's just what we do. But when you think that my education is no longer available, which in a weird way gives it validity, I suppose. I was part of the last class to graduate from the master's degree that I did, being taught aesthetics, semiotics, and rhetoric. And then I volunteered at the university for a little while as a research assistant to one of my former lecturers, and I got to see sort of behind the scenes what was going on. And they had sent in a new person to run the department, and they were basically squashing out popular music, and they completely got rid of the undergraduate degree and the master's degree, and then they brought back the undergraduate without popular music studies. Yeah. And the master's degree was unique because the person delivering it is the person who built it from the ground up. So they realized, I think because we drew attention, because we all got really high grades and we all had rhetoric in the title of our dissertations. Right. I think the university were like, wait a minute, what? They're teaching them rhetoric? No.
They're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be teaching them. You're supposed to be indoctrinating them, right? So that we can use them. Exactly.
And I think I told you on the last day I volunteered there, I won't name the lecturers because I don't know if they're aware that there's stuff going on like the way we're aware, but so I don't want to throw them under the bus in case, because they do have careers to think about as well. So, but one of my lecturers on the door of the popular music office, when I was volunteering there the last day, she put a note up on the door, like a printout, and it said something along the lines of the Beatles were a manufacturing of the Tavistock Institute, and were under the management of Theodore Adorno. And I was already familiar with Theodore Adorno because we had used him for comparative source material. And I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. And she looked at me like with a grin, laughing with me, but like in a way that was like,
nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
It's not true.
Yeah. Nudge, nudge,
and then
wink,
it was only further down the line when I watched Sage of Quay break it down, Mike Williams. I was like, oh, it's so on the nose. Like, oh, dear God. You know, when you're too close to it to notice, because I'm in Liverpool. And I was studying popular music, and I was using the Beatles as all of my case studies because they're right there on the doorstep. It's easy access information. For a student, it's a gold mine. It was useful.
So in your travels, and again, I just we'll put a bookmark here, but I find it curious. In your travels, what is the most surprising to you to discover of the lies that we've been told, things that you had believed your whole life to be foundationally true, to discover is not? What was the most surprising one to you?
It's difficult. It might be. I guess the obvious one would be the nature of our world. I guess the shape. Yeah. Even though I don't know, like I'm quite comfortable saying I don't know what it is, but like the idea that these people who are sort of put in charge of all things world and universe were like just lying the whole time. Right. That one. I mean, I never believed the lunar landing. I think I've told you before. When I was a child, I was told that we went to the moon, and I believed it. And because I was in school and I've seen the moon, so I thought, well, I know the moon is real and it doesn't look that far away, so I suppose people could have gone there because I was 6 years old. Yeah. And then as soon as they wheeled in the television with the VHS and put the video on, my decision was, oh, the adults are telling stories again. Yeah, right. Because I'd already figured out, Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, all of that. So I kind of lumped it in with that.
Interestingly enough, that one kind of pissed me off in that I was mad at myself for not having thought it through, because I have been not believing in the moon landing story for a long time, but I wasn't even mad about that. I just thought it was a political thing, and that they weren't going to back up off that. But surprisingly enough, so while that was terribly surprising, I think the biggest surprise for me was the Scalagerian timeline, and that we have no idea when we are. When you put
that's a big one.
Yeah, when you put everything together, it just goes part and parcel with the whole thing. They've destroyed all of our history, and certainly I've been interested in Atlantis and antediluvian world and all that sort of stuff way back for ages. But when you kind of put together the Scalagerian timeline, what we've been told of history is not only hidden but complete fabrication. That opens up everything. It's like, where are we? What is this place?
Well, right? You know what I think about the Dark Ages? The last document I sent to you and Red Fox, before Red had to go hibernate.
Yeah.
In that document, that was just something which came to mind. I won't go into. Sorry for bringing it up in the first place, because people are going to get mad that I don't go into it now. But there's a lot of speculation and accusation, and I think I'd probably get the stream pulled. Yeah. If you remember what I think I figured out there.
Yeah. It's something that we can talk about.
The idea of the Dark Ages to begin with is a bit odd.
Yeah, well, and certainly again proven. I mean, archaeologically, supposedly, no structures were built in all of primary area of Europe for almost 400 years. The statistical probability of that is almost less than zero, if that's even a thing.
Like people were just rolling in grass or something.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing, literally nothing happened.
So, or however long it was, half a millennium or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember even being in school and going through the story of Charlemagne, going, "There's no fucking way." They put everything on this guy. He was bigger than Jesus, right? As to quote John Lennon again. Yeah, right. So it was preposterous to me. I thought, well, they probably just he was a PR of the day. But then again, as you go through and you discover more and more, you find all these things are constructions, and so more and more. And again, as I look into stuff like again the nature of the world that we live in, and the stories of Eratosthenes, right? And then you go to the etymology of his name, erat, right? An error, errata, right? So it's mistaken, it's fraud, it's wrong. And then Osthenes, right, is literally like Narnia. It was a Greek fairy tale world, and so literally you have fake fairy tale world is his name.
So his name basically equates to nonsense.
Exactly. It literally means fake fairy tale world. Yes, and so it's like,
you've got to give them the humor though. Sometimes you do have to, like,
it's a poke in the eye.
Sexton. You can't get mad at that, can you? As
it's
ridiculous.
It's a little offensive to me. It's a poke in the eye, but I guess I get where they're coming from, because so few do get it. Right? I'm like, they're insulting our intelligence, but there are so few who are figuring it out. I guess you got to hand it to them that they're doing it.
I also feel like it's a bit of a lifeline to the people who do see through it, like us. There's a bit of a, like when like Paul McCartney or whoever he is, when he's in interviews. And they were like, "Oh, does the Paul is dead conspiracy ever come up? And what happened to him? And he who was your replacement?" And they're kind of joking with him to get a laugh out of the audience. And Paul or Billy turns to the camera and goes, "This is it." And then he goes, "Shh," and he puts his finger to his mouth. Mm-hmm. And when that's incredibly funny what he's done there. That's a bit of Liverpool humour.
Yeah,
that's a way for me to know that I know that he is from Liverpool, regardless of who he is. I know he is from Liverpool. I can tell by his accent. I can tell by his humour. If he's not from Liverpool, he is a world-class actor.
Right. Yep.
There's something about him. There's something I think Owen Benjamin met him and he said he's a nice guy. There is a part of me that thinks there's something there, even though I understand he's 33-degree Mason and
all that stuff. Yeah.
We know the story, I guess, from Sage of Quay, but there's a part of me that thinks that he must be sick of it by now. Right, he must be trying to keep the humour up for his own sanity. And also when you see him perform, he might be one of the greatest musicians we've ever seen, but we don't know it.
Yeah.
His skill is unbelievable when you think he's not left-handed. And then you listen to some of the things he can do, and he's classically trained as well. And he can play what he plays right-handed, which is his home
Yeah,
style,
ambidextrously.
like his natural
Yeah.
style, and then you switch it. Like I'm a guitarist. I know if someone told me to turn the guitar over and play Blackbird, I'd be like, no,
Yep. Not gonna do
there's
it.
no way I'd ever learn that.
Yeah.
But he can. Like, I don't think you can achieve that level of skill and be a complete all-out Satanist scumbag. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. No, I
Like, there has
absolutely
to
do.
be something that I think they need people in the industry who do have some element of light in them in order to, like you recently mentioned Eddie Van Halen because he passed away. His level of playing ability, it doesn't equate to ritualistic, satanistic scumbag who, the Jeffrey Epstein types who, well, Jeffrey Epstein's a good example. What did he do?
Yeah. Right.
What was his skill?
Well, not killing himself.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty good at that, I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, apparently his skill was projecting a false persona and supplying the evil people with their adrenochrome or whatever.
There's nothing creative about it, though. So this
Nope.
is the thing. Like for someone to be able to, like, the concept of a creator, that was the big thing for me, is realizing this is observably a created world.
Yes.
Regardless of the shape, it's a created. There was a point where anyone who knows me, who hears this, will be freaked out that I'm even saying this because I've never been religious and I'm still not.
Yeah.
I'm on the same
Well,
page
good for
as
you.
that's sort of organized spirituality.
Yeah.
So I've never been religious. I did go to religious schools because over here every school is connected to a church, and I appreciated the morals in the scripture, but I never saw it as like a real thing. Like, so I'm not comfortable with naming whatever the creator is, but I've come to the logical understanding that if this is a created world, every creation has a creator. Right. Therefore, we have a creator. It's like looking at a painting and saying, there's no such thing as a painter. Nobody painted this.
Yeah, right.
It just appeared out of a random explosion in a vacuum.
It's pareidolia.
The Mona Lisa.
Yeah, it's pareidolia. You just think you're seeing that.
Right.
But yeah,
so
I mean,
that's creation. And then, so when I see someone like the figures we're presented with who certainly do a lot of creating, like Paul McCartney or, again, whoever he is, Bob Dylan, people like that,
yeah.
Eddie Van Halen, you understand, like, I don't think that level of creation is something that the actual Satanistic scumbags are capable of, which is why they have to employ them.
Well, I do. I agree with that. And, I guess to touch on the other thing, if you've ever listened to my Sunday streams, you know that I'm not big on religion either. Right? I mean,
yeah.
While I came from that background, it didn't feed my spirit. In fact, for many people like yourself, I find that that's actually a better position to be in because you have so much less to unlearn. Right? You miss that.
I think that might be the big one for me, is the coming to the understanding that this is, like I said, I was never a fan of NASA, and I never really subscribed to the idea of a Big Bang. I was just happy not knowing. Yeah. But it was only through interacting with yourself and everyone else in the live chat, and then you come to realize this is a created world, like, observably. Like, it's nothing I can go and prove, but I've been able to prove it to myself that this is a created world, regardless of what anyone else thinks. I'm fine with people thinking what they want to think, but the logical jump from there is, if it's created, it has to have a creator.
Right. And through as you said, it's difficult to prove empirically, but through abductive and, logical progression, certainly we can, come to that, at least the preponderance of the evidence to satisfy our own, to satisfy our own curiosity. For me, I have the advantage of, having developed a relationship with the creator, so that it's not like a belief system or a thought experiment for me to actually, somebody that I know, right? And I know their personality. So I have that benefit. But the other, what you were speaking about, that there are some that can create and some that cannot, and I do agree with that. I think there are many people. For example, Eddie Van Halen is one. I recall an interview where he specifically acknowledged that some of the music was inspired. It came from outside of him, and it was inspired. And so they sort of take that inspiration and then just twist it upside down, right? They hire it, and they misuse it. Just like all things. I mean, from my perspective, all things were put here by the creator for positive intention. And what happens is, again, it just gets twisted and used and perverted into something different and misused. Whether that is, whether that is the beautiful and spiritual act of sex between between people, or whether that is, the image of the swastika, things that were powerful and positive that have been turned into something negative. That it becomes an ideogram of fear or hostility that was never intended to be.
And the strange thing about it is that the wall that I learned, the wall that was put to, maybe this is the wall that Pink Floyd are singing about, is subjectivity. Because a lot of the way into semiotics is you have to set aside all of the, like, your preconceived ideas of why there is value in a thing. When I went to university, I had all my prejudgments of, like, Bob Dylan is great because he's Bob. It's his royal Bobness. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone builds up their own thing, don't they? With popular music, you see a lot of fanboys and fangirls who just like the thing because these people are being propped up, the false idols, basically. So there's sort of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a way of sort of verifying someone. So then you think, oh, well, they are great because they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, my lecturers did a job of making us set all of that aside and put us into a subjective frame of mind, so that we were more receptive of aesthetics and semiotics. So we would entertain the idea. Now, not a lot of people in the class did entertain the idea. They thought it was a load of bollocks, and they just they did it just to get the grade, basically. But some of us started realizing, wait a minute, there's something to this, because as soon as we started analyzing music, I'll provide an example now that I think everyone will know. It'll be cliche because it's the Beatles, but it's the best example of semiotics in music to this day I know of. Mm-hmm. Is you're familiar with the song "A Day in the Life"?
I am.
Right. Well, do you remember the alarm clock?
Yes.
That might be the greatest use of semiotics in popular music history.
So explain that.
Because
gloss that a bit.
Right. So while I was at university, I can't remember the girl's name because I didn't know her, but it was in a few years before I was there. She wrote an essay, and she did a 3,000-word essay on 2 seconds worth of audio. It was a semiotic analysis of the alarm in A Day in the Life, just before Paul McCartney comes in, or Billy.
Right.
I think it was Billy by that point.
Yeah.
I think that was his first record.
It was, yes.
So at that point where the alarm goes off, the girl who wrote the essay, I wish I could, probably wouldn't name her actually, just to probably make her life hell. Right. But she wrote this essay, and she was explaining in this 2 seconds worth of audio, you delivered a wealth of information through connotations. Because as soon as the alarm goes off at that point, the first thing you know with an alarm is the time of day. It's morning.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, you're in a bedroom. It's a bedroom. Someone's in bed. They're either asleep or they're waking up, or they're awake. Like, they're in that sort of transitionary moment. So you kind of know what's going on. And then you also understand, say, what the lighting of the room might be like, because it's morning, like the sun coming through the curtains or whatever. Like, you can basically set the scene in your head.
Yep.
And then also now, because it's 50 years since, you've got a point in time, because it's not a digital alarm clock like a modern alarm clock. It's got the bells ringing.
Yep.
It's one of the old-fashioned ones, so you've got a point in time. So this one alarm tells you all of that information and sets up
and so
scene,
quickly,
like in a movie, like a scene. And then what happens? Paul McCartney or Billy Shepherd animates a character within the scene that was set up by the alarm clock. And then he plays out a scene by animating that character, and through the lyrics and his voice, he's doing. It's like they're making a movie in your head,
and
through audio,
and the foreshadowing of the actual event that we're, I guess I don't know, say supposed to believe or not believe or whatever. He blew his mind out in a car.
Right. Yeah.
The supposed accident, automobile
collision.
The
opening line. You know what the opening line is going to be, and the reason we remember the opening line is because of the alarm clock. Because when an alarm clock goes off, you wake up, you get out of bed, you drag a comb across your head.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
it's whoever decided to put the alarm clock in absolutely understands semiotics and aesthetics and rhetoric. There's no way they don't.
Yeah, and
you don't accidentally do that.
In fact, when as I began to develop as a musician in my later teens, I quickly came to understand my without knowing any of this stuff, my opinion of the Beatles that they were amazing songwriters and crappy
Oh yeah.
musicians, right? And then it turns out that that they weren't
Oh
really
yeah.
writing most of the songs, right? It was actually all written
Billy can
for
write.
them. Because I mean, certainly as I became later into an adult and having a much better understanding of things as I do now, there's absolutely no way that they wrote some of those
Oh no.
arrangements. Not even close. Could these kids have done that?
Well, as soon as I learned Blackbird, that was one of the first songs I learned on guitar, and I was like, "This is a tricky thing to play." And then later on, when I was at university, they wanted me to do classical guitar lessons because they had already hired the guy, and then no one was allocated to him. So they asked me if I would because I'm easygoing. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was learning a classical piece, and I was like, "This is Blackbird." I was like, "How did Paul McCartney, who, as we're told, doesn't know how to read or write music, none of them did. How did he know how to play a classical piece?"
Yeah.
And my guitar teacher was just like, "Well, they were hanging out with the likes of Theodore Adorno or whatever, and this person, and they knew classical music, so I think they just picked things up here and there."
Yep.
And I thought, I mean, it's a reasonable excuse, but at the same time, no.
It comes off, yeah, it just comes off as like not really believable, right?
I believe that Billy wrote it. I could believe that. I'm not saying he definitely did, but considering he is a classically trained musician,
Yeah,
it's believable.
possible, but
It becomes more reasonable. Like songs like "Let It Be" and "Hey Jude" all of a sudden become more reasonable when
yeah, but then
you
you look at
understand
stuff.
that might not be the same guy.
You look at stuff like Eleanor Rigby, and there's no. I got to tell you,
Oh yeah,
there's no way those kids wrote
no,
that song. It's, I mean, even if you discount and say, okay, somebody came in and did the strings for them, just the arrangement of that song and the way it's put together, no way,
yeah.
not a chance.
"In My Life" is, I mean,
Yeah,
that'd be a bit of a push.
even
Especially John Lennon. John Lennon I mean, he was a good songwriter and he had a unique voice that it resonated with people, and he did like they needed him. But at the same time, when you hear that song, especially when it's on the Rubber Soul album, and you listen to one album before, and you're like, they never wrote anything this good, and then it was considered his like the Beatles' first official say composition in quotations.
yeah. I mean, I could believe that they wrote stuff like "I Want to Hold Your Hand," right? Okay,
Yeah.
I can accept that. But even something to the extent of "Strawberry Fields," right, or "Get Back," no way, just no way. That
Right.
the
Yeah.
change in again genre, the crossover styles that they did there, some of the jazz chords they're using with suspended ninths and
I could
thirteenths.
imagine Billy did.
Yeah, maybe.
I could imagine he might like he had. I think that's why they needed him, is because it was going to get is increasingly difficult if they had four people who didn't really know what they were doing. And at the same time, I don't really, as much as I've learned about the Beatles now, and some of the falsehoods around them, in a way, I kind of appreciate them even more because when you think of how young they were when they started,
Yeah.
and I actually weirdly have first-hand information from everyone thinks they originated in the cabin, but they originate in the Casbah, and I've actually been to the Casbah, and I've seen the photographs and John Lennon's name carved in the wall, and the paintwork that they did, and the photographs of them doing the paintwork, and the piano that Paul used to play with, the photographs of Paul playing the piano. This is, in the late 50s,
Mhm.
and the lady who ran the Casbah was Mona Best, who was Pete Best's mum. Pete Best was the
Yep.
original drummer.
Yep.
Rogue Best, his half brother, now runs the Casbah as a tourist attraction. He's trying to put it on the map, and he's trying to, for his mum's sake. His mum's no longer with us, but she technically was the first Beatles manager,
Right.
unofficially. But she was an Anglo-Indian lady, and then when what's his face who created Apple Corps, what's his name?
Oh, yeah. Had you not asked me, I would have remembered right away.
He's got one of them names where I always remember it, and then when I need to, it's gone.
Yep.
And he actually, this is, you can Google this as well. He's actually Rogue Best, who currently runs the Casbah, is his son with Mona Best.
All right.
So Pete Best is his half brother. This is all on Google. This isn't like sharing family secrets. It was through an affair, and because the Beatles were drawing a crowd to the Casbah at the time. This is before Ringo was in the band and Pete was the drummer. two men. One was the Beatles' first manager, official first manager, the guy who opened Apple Corps, and then two guys who I'm assuming were from Tavistock came along and realised Mona Best isn't officially their manager, so they left her out of the negotiations of transferring the Beatles from the Casbah to the Cavern. They cut her out of the picture. She never cared, apparently. Rogers said she never really cared much, but when you think about what's going on there,
Yeah.
that was presumably when they were picked up, and this is the late 50s. This is probably maybe 1960, 1961, like just on the cusp of when it was like, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Right.
So
yeah,
it became obvious to me that there was something going on, but not to the extent that I now know.
Right, and of course, they suspiciously stopped playing live as soon as the music got really complicated. Right, they simply could not.
As soon as Paul,
1966
disappeared,
yeah,
they stepped in.
yeah, they stopped.
I imagine Billy wasn't able to play left-handed at the time, so.
Yeah,
how do you?
Just couldn't do it, and it became more well outside their skill set. I mean, I always considered, again, before knowing any of this stuff about them, I always considered Ringo the luckiest man in rock and roll because he was such a poor drummer.
Well, yeah, when you think about how, that's another thing. When you consider Mona Best and the Casbah, obviously they had to get rid of Pete Best, because if they were swindling the Beatles from Mona, that wasn't going to work if her son was in the band,
right.
Was it? She'd find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Piecing that together, I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's all fixed. And then, of course, Sage of Quay elaborates on it, and he's your guy. If you want to know anything Beatles, he'll the 4-hour video he did on who wrote the Beatles songs was, I've only seen part of it, but already it's absolutely not possible.
Yeah. So, and then, again, this is just one. This is just one example. I mean, certainly the Beatles were an enormous impact sociologically as well as musically, but it is just one of an entire generation. I mean, social engineering has taken over all of not just popular music, but certainly every form of media, from film and television. It's like that's like the purpose of it, right? So,
and the way they do it is through semiotics. Just to tie it back in again, when you think about how, like I said about the alarm clock in a day in a life, or whatever it's called, the alarm clock in there is, when you think about what that does, obviously the intent wasn't negative. They were just, in that case, they're setting up a scene. Paul McCartney, I think they were showing off. I think that was, say, Tavistock's way of going, look what we know how to do. Because anyone who's in the know would hear that and be like, "Oh, that was really clever. Like, how did they know how to do that?" And then you think, wait, what else can be done with that? Because if you think they can plant an entire scene in your head and then have Paul McCartney, Billy Shepherd animate a character within that scene, and in your head, it's not 100% like foolproof, because obviously not everyone's going to interpret a song the same way as the next person, but if you're susceptible, say, if you're in a subjective state of mind listening, like you said, it surpasses the limbic system.
Yep.
If you think about it that way, then ideas can get through. Even though that one's harmless, it's a good example of what can be done.
That's why it's so powerful. That's why music is such a powerful tool.
And they all know how to do it. Like I think I sent you a breakdown of Run Through the Jungle by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Mm-hmm. John Fogerty, if he's writing them songs, he absolutely understands semiotics.
Yeah.
There's no way he doesn't.
Well, and I
think about Up Around the Bend, the intro riff he's playing. He slides and bends the note at the beginning before the lyrics have even came in. Like, he already knows this is connotative of what something that's in the name of the song, but also it kind of pre-echoes the chorus. So it's got it's almost like Crow would say, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
If you look at it on a larger scale, a self-fulfilling prophecy works on the basis of semiotics and aesthetics. You can pre-echo something so that people are already ready for it. So it's pre-programming through semiotics.
Indeed, and one of the things again with music being one of those things again we're hardwired for and bypasses the limbic system and can transpose or transport you right immediately into another headspace right away, and it's such a powerful attachment to memory. Right, you can hear a song and it takes you back to. That's why you have a favorite song. It reminds you of a certain time, and the way that we lay down memories that associates things with emotions. Right, that's how it's value to us. And one of the interesting stories again with a within the context of the sort of the spiritual aspect, right? It's been one of the stories that is told about the nature of the let's say the chief enemy, right? Is that not only being the most beautiful and let's say exalted of all the angelic host, but also had musical instruments built into his body. He had
Like
pipes.
the harp was his ribs, was it?
Yes, pipes and strings built into his body, and so this is where we get Pan, right? The idea of playing the pan
Right.
flute. That he had these pipes built into his body, but also the stringed instruments. So you can imagine if you had muscle memory and tens of thousands of years probably to get good at it. Well, you certainly would have a really good availability of not only understanding the power of music, but to be the muse for some lower life form like a human, right?
Understand the intricacy of it as well.
Yes.
Like everything we're talking about here, the semiotics, you would understand how that works. Because if I can learn it in 4 years without even knowing that I was learning something of any great significance, like I said, it was only retrospectively. I was like, wait a minute,
Right.
this is like this is like the framework of how they do everything. This is the framework of social engineering and
Exactly.
programming, because it's like the in between bit. Like we know the beginning and the end, but the middle piece is a bit of a grey area for us. And then I realised after a little while of listening to Crow and Jason and everyone, I was like, wait a minute, I know what that middle piece is. I've been taught this. And
Yeah.
then I started realising like my degrees were all done away with for a reason, and we shouldn't have been taught any of that. And then that's why I started sending you a lot of information, because I was like, I think this might actually be something, because I didn't think it was anything of any great import. I just thought I'm interested in music and particularly popular music, and this is a good way of analysing it. And then as soon as I started applying it to other things as well, you start realizing, like Crow always does it with signs and symbols, like this symbol indicates that. I was like, that's semiotics. And then I was like, people are kind of figuring it out on their own, but they don't have the terminology or the overall framework. But I'm sat here with like files on my laptop from university, looking through them like, geez, they actually taught us this.
Yeah. Like again, yeah, they had a little bit of a mistake. Like, oops, they're actually learning something. We should, back
Yeah,
up
we
off
drew
that.
attention a bit.
Yeah.
Most of us got firsts. Like I got my master's degree as a first class master's, which means you hit the top grade bracket, so you pass with it's called a first class. So I think enough of us did that, and I think they realised something's going on here. There's no way people consistently get these good grades, and they all have rhetoric in the name of the dissertations. And I think maybe the people up top, the faculty, were probably like, hang on a minute, we need to check out what's going on there, because at the time they'd just refurbished the entire department to make way for popular music, because they had 4 years worth of students lined up.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, all popular music studies got done away with, and every associated member of staff was made redundant. That's not normal to spend that much money to refurbish. And I mean, most people will probably figure out what university this is from that now, if they're in the know.
Yeah. But that is pretty remarkable to really just sack an entire department. It's pretty remarkable.
It's crazy. There was only one member of staff who was my main lecturer. He chose to leave because he could see the writing on the wall. He handed in his notice and was like, and he forewarned me and was like, something's going on, and he got out of there. So this is why I don't know if they are, say, truthers, or if they just say they like popular music. They know that there's something of value there, but they don't. That I don't know if they're far more advanced than I am on this. They could school me any day. They've taught me what I know. But I think as far as applying it to what we do here in applying it to the wider spectrum of what nonsense that's going on. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say because of the note on the door. They were trying to tell me something. I was always also taught on my masters about the story to Stuart Sutcliffe, the original Beatles bassist, and how he died. The mainstream narrative to the non-mainstream narrative.
Yeah, right.
It's printed in a book as well. Like, his sister actually put the allegation out there, a manslaughter case for one of the members of the Beatles, who at one point was Stuart Sutcliffe's boyfriend.
Yeah, and
You can guess.
yeah, yeah. But this is why again I'm so delighted to have you as a member of this community. There are so many really bright people. Lucas, L.C. King, and certainly yourself, and again we mentioned earlier Red Fox, and a bunch of people who are really just brilliant thinkers who are looking at these. They bring their skill sets to these ideas of being able to not only tear down the lies, but apply the knowledge that we have. Some of it even slipped out. Right, like your master study that they almost again unintended consequences of teaching you the skills, especially using again rhetoric and logic to work these things out. This is why I'm so delighted and pleased to have you guys in the community, and please do continue to send me all these. I mean, I may not be quick to get back with you, and you understand the nature of my schedule.
Fine,
it's just crazy, but I do read them, right, and I consider them. And for me, as you mentioned earlier, the pieces of the puzzle, I think that is one of the better analogies that has been drawn with trying to figure out the truth. There are so many of the pieces that have been lost and have been occluded and painted over, but when you begin to sort of slowly put them together, you can infer a great deal by the pieces that are missing. Right, when you kind of
they aren't too difficult to find either. When, like I say, with semiotics, that it just all of a sudden makes it really simple. Like Crow keeps reiterating with numerology, phonetics, and etymology, when you start getting into that, the process of that is semiotics. And then when you start doing that, you start finding things really easily. And you're like, this isn't even very well hidden. It's just you need to know a certain technique, like a methodology.
Yep.
And they withhold that methodology from us. And then once you know it, you're like, all of a sudden you're being bombarded with information and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's everywhere, right? Again, once you begin able to see the patterns develop, you see them everywhere, especially if you begin looking at, again, things like gematria and numerology, that sort of thing. You go, oh my God, it's everywhere. And
it's exactly like that movie, They Live. The glasses he puts on the Hoffman lenses, which are presumably a reference to Michael Hoffman.
Yeah.
Another moment of semiotics that they put in the movie. So they know what semiotics are because they did it with the glasses.
Yep, and it's
like a lot of people in the industry understand what this is, but most of us haven't even heard the word semiotics, or if we have, we don't know what it means. But they all do it.
Yeah, it's and as Russian Vids always says, truth in the movies and lies in the news. And it's a great saying because there's so much that is an axiom that really becomes a truism. You can see it everywhere. Everything in the news is pretty much at best a misdescription, if not a complete fabrication. And yet, so much of the truth is just right out there in the open in the movies, but they play it off as though, of course, it's fantasy. It is. It's
well, also with sound, there's also the idea that not just planting like a thought in someone's head, you can plant a mood or a feeling.
Yes.
With sound, and it doesn't necessarily have to be lyrics or like lyrical content or the emotion of the voice or whatever. It could be like an instrument, like a lot of guitar riffs.
Oh, my wife and I were talking
something else. Won't they? They'll mimic, say, like a motorbike starting up. I think maybe someone like Motorhead would have had like that kind of the bass and the guitar. They would make them sound like vehicles.
The beginning of
so that would be called in another one of the terminologies I have is sonic anaphone, because sonic anaphone is a reference in music, whether it's instrument or voice, something which is referring to something which isn't musical.
Yep, this in the beginning of Van Halen's "The Cradle Will Rock." That is a car horn that was connected to a battery, and so it begins as the battery goes down. You can hear it. It sounds as though it's passing by you because of the Doppler effect. That
Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Run Through the Jungle.
Yep.
The opening, the instruments, you can hear like a tambourine rattling, and it sounds like a rattlesnake, and you have these different instruments that sound like the jungle. and then you have the dwindling guitar slowly fade in from the background to the foreground, and that sounds like someone running through the jungle. Like the guitar's mimicking
Yep.
the motion of someone running through the jungle. So this is why I say if John Fogerty came up with that, he absolutely knows semiotics. You
Yep.
can't accidentally do that. That's not a.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not.
they
It's not
could
a lucky.
argue
It's
you
not a
could stumble
lucky
upon that, but let's be
serendipitous.
honest.
Yeah, not a lucky serendipitous moment for sure.
You don't do it repeatedly, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And these things are even outside of music. For example, in the movie The Exorcist, they used pigs, the sound of pigs being slaughtered, and then
Right.
put it with a lion's roar, and kind of mixed it all together and slowed it down. And it made people ill because the sound of pigs being slaughtered sounds very similar to, again, babies in distress, and that makes people very, very tense and nervous. And that was one of the first things, Mark, that got me interested in the technology of sound and music. Was reading a book. I was probably, I think, 11 or 12, about the psychology of sound. And psychoacoustics, and what happens to us physiologically is our response to sound, and that we very much don't just hear with our ears, but our bones are good transducers of music. In fact, in the inner ear, of course, there are three bones: the anvil, the hammer, and the stirrup that amplify. They use a mechanical advantage to amplify about 20 to 1 the air pressure waves that come into your tympani, your eardrum, and so it's this amplification. And then the cochlea, of course, the inner ear, is a fascinating device that, again, we know so very little about, and yet in a process we don't fully understand, which is
they do.
which is always what happens with academics. They claim to know everything, but it is, again, a fascinating thing to me that, for example, as you say, with music, it can bring you intense emotion. My wife and I were talking this morning. One of our favorite guitar solos is the first solo from "Comfortably Numb" by Pink Floyd, and how immediately, just the very first scraping of the pick across the strings, you can just, of course, we know it very well, but it just tears your soul. It's like,
Pink Floyd are probably the perfect example of a band who know semiotics.
Yeah, The Wall.
Listen to
Yeah.
any Pink Floyd song ever. Every single song, they did it every single time.
Yeah.
The Gunner's Dream that people will be familiar on Owen Benjamin's live streams. He plays the Gunner's Dream. If you listen to the album version, the opening, you hear it sounds like an airplane door opening and the wind coming in, and then the way they move the audio sounds like the person is getting closer to the door and then jumps out, and then you hear the whistle, and then you hear the parachute pull, and then the piano comes in and fades in over it, and then it plays out a song telling a story of the gunner in World War II flying down to the battlefield to fight, and then at the end of the song you hear voices shouting and guns going off, and so they're putting a scene in your head. Obviously, again, that's not a negative thing in their case. It's almost like they're trying to make your head a cinema.
Exactly.
And then, so depending on what the movie is, it's going to have a certain effect in some way. Like Quentin Tarantino did the best example. I don't think he was trying to do anything negative, but I think he was showing off because it was his first movie, Reservoir Dogs, with the radio, when he put Michael Madsen playing the psychopath.
Yeah.
And he had a police officer in a chair tied up and he was going to torture him, but he puts the radio on, and Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel comes on, and everybody knows it. Most people love that song, and kind of it evokes some kind of positive response. But the problem with that is because music passes the limbic system and gives you that initial that inherent positive response, but then you're witnessing a police officer having his ear cut off by a psychopath. Like, you're mixing something grotesque with something that you see as being positive, so you're feeling positive while watching someone be tortured. So I don't think that was Tarantino's way of trying to normalize violence. I think that was his way of saying to the big studios, look what I know how to do. And then after that, he got picked up by big studios.
Yeah.
Because he was showing, I understand semiotics, I understand how to manipulate audiences, and he's openly admitted he absolutely loves the idea of being the conductor of an orchestra and the audience is his orchestra.
Yeah.
And so he does know how to do it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hide it. I don't think that's him being negative, but you can see how in the long run, over a span of, say, from Elvis to now, you can see how semiotics could easily normalize things when you think about how Elvis wasn't allowed to be shown on television from
The waist.
below the waist.
Right.
But now, Miley Cyrus can get naked on
And
like
twerk.
daytime television
Yeah.
and just deliver an interview as if it's nothing. So you think, how do you go from one to the other? Well, this is the middle bit. They just slowly edge the way towards it, don't they? They use semiotics and like the framing of the person or the delivery of the music to create like a false icon, and then that's how it kind of it's like passing the baton from generation to generation, and eventually it was inevitably going to wind up where it is now.
Yeah, and this just tying all of these ideas, back to what we've heard in philosophy for ever, is that signs and symbols rule the world, and these seeing symbols tell an entire story in a single symbol. Going back even to the idea of the sky clock, and how we have these symbols in the sky that, if you really look at it, well, certainly the constellation Virgo looks nothing like a woman, right? You have to be very creative to see those things in it. But they're certainly telling a story, and certainly, from my opinion, much of it has been lost. The original story has been occluded and hidden and retold in different ways to be confusing, such that it makes it much more difficult to find the truth of what was meant there. From my perspective, so many of these things are probably so very simple and yet made overcomplicated in a way. Again, just like I've said before about, for example, the periodic table of elements. They use chemistry to make it very complicated, and yet it probably isn't. When I start looking at it in terms of atomic weights as being probably having to do with the frequency that is in stasis. It's in the same way cymatics works, right? That you get.
I was going to say cymatics. I was going to bring that up and say how much more semiotic analysis could we do once we have those signs and symbols and what they mean.
Exactly. You're getting to yes. This is what I love about these conversations. We're getting to exactly the same point at the same time. Going, yes, when you bring these things together and these ideas, that again, those cymatic presentations and what we see when sound becomes solid, right, is then represented in some of these stained glass windows that you see throughout Europe, and these ancient, these ancient buildings that we're told were built during the Middle Ages. Is that right? When nothing else was built. Right?
Think about the Nord symbol I mentioned before, the Viking symbol, Vegvisa, the 8-pointed compass. Right, Benjamin Balderson on Crow 777 stated that he's seen that in the cymatic pattern when he was observing someone else playing with cymatics. The guy was like, check this out, and like did the frequency, and the Vegvisa 8-pointed compass came up, and he was familiar with it because he's a Odinist. So he was like, what the hell? Like, how did they know this?
Exactly.
This is like a really ancient symbol.
And many of these rose symbols, right, that are used in these churches. I have seen a couple of examples, and I'd have to go back and look because I saved it at one point. I don't have that drive connected anymore. But the fundamental frequency, the resonant frequency of the structure is exactly the same as the frequency patterns that are shown, would be the cymatic pattern, right, shown in this window. And then and I got to there because of way back, having seen that there was in India, some of the temples there, very old temples, there are basically mandalas, but they look like cymatic patterns. And those are, again, represent a series of tones. And those tones are, again, part of the fundamental frequency, the resonant frequency of the structure. It's like, how the fuck would they have known that? Again, if the timeline is as they'd say, which clearly isn't true, but there is so much information that has been lost clearly, right? That the previous civilizations knew so much more than did we.
I actually had the benefit of being taught there used to be a couple of weeks of every year in university where they would bring in lecturers from external to the university, and our university were friendly with the Indian art department who had came over from India to collaborate with the university. And so I got lessons on Indian music, and they were teaching us about colour and how there are different scales for different times of day, and different scales represent different colours. And that's why people wear different colours on different days, and all their clothes are very colourful. There's a reason behind it. It's not just because like it goes well with the skin tone or whatever.
And these things were common knowledge. Yeah, these things were common knowledge among even the, quote, profane back in the day, where Crow and I have talked about this with flowers, that flowers and colors represented an entire language that has been lost mostly. And there's very little of it that's left over in terms of like etiquette and that sort of thing. But it used to be an entire language that was contained within the idea of giving flowers, or you could put together, this is where bouquets came from. You could tell the whole story with a bouquet of flowers by their position, their color, and the choice of composition would tell an entire story. And you could tell, again, like a whole tale in an arrangement. And this is something that's been entirely lost to most people.
Yeah, there's something there that we're going to figure out, I think, fairly soon. Like in our lifetimes, we'll start to figure out more. You've got Benjamin Balderson figuring out cymatics, and Crow is all over that as well. And then when you think, we're all starting to, like, everyone in the live chat was probably already familiar with semiotics without realizing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's something we all do, but we don't necessarily know the name for it or the process, like the middle part. So we're able to get from A to C, but now we know what B is.
Right, we don't know exactly the process of getting
jump as far anymore.
Exactly. Like so many people understand intuitively what ontology is, but they don't know the word. And then when you kind of explain the process, oh yeah, they totally get it. It becomes, it's sort of intuitive, but when you can do something with knowledge and add that to intuition, then it becomes so much more powerful, right? And to me, this is the same idea as manifesting your will. We do it all the time. We speak into existence things without realizing that we do it. And yet we don't understand that we're doing it, right? So we're all over the map. There's no potent, powerful, really intentional intent behind it. And when you can put those together and understand what's happening and the way that you're doing it and the power behind it and the reason that they have told us, right, not to pay attention to these things and how much power it is that they're trying to steal the power from us, that we are meant to manifest our will. We are a mini-me of the Creator, and we can organize thoughts and sounds into solid patterns, into material things. That's a powerful skill and understanding and knowledge to have that I think that they are intentionally keeping from us. And the more people that begin to wake up to that,
don't want us to have enough time to create. Like since I had more time on my hands, and I've been interacting with you and everyone in the live chat, I've also been getting myself published, which apparently is in the finalizing stages right now. And I also, Dawn, informally helped me. I was writing my first children's story to try and get an interview with, it was one of the biggest children's publishers in Britain. They gave me the interview. They didn't pick up the story. Sorry, Dawn. But it was still a good run because it's the first children's story I ever wrote, and I'd only started writing properly this year, deciding to try and get myself published. And I am being published. And then also I landed an interview with one of the biggest publishers, and I'm like, it takes effort, but it's not the kind of effort that you miss because you're creating something. And I'm like, this is what happens when you have more time on your hands. You start, or if you're productive anyway, you start accomplishing things. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is what they don't want us doing.
Right. No, that's again, this is what I'm so excited about, and part of why I'm so interested. Again, one part of why I'm so interested in getting our community to sort of tribe up and get together and to connect our skills with one another. The conversation I had with Cammie, and we just went all over the place, and it's like, okay, yeah, we give us enough time, and we can figure this garbage out because it's pretty straightforward, and some of it again is intuitive. But as you said, whenever we begin to have understanding of what it is that's going on, when we put that together with our intuition, there's so much that can happen there. So again, I'm so delighted to have you as part of the community here. I now see that I can hear that they're doing some maintenance work outside, and it's becoming kind of annoying. But I do want to. We've had many questions in the chat as to where do you have
I've not seen the chat.
Yeah,
I don't have it on the screen. Sorry.
So many questions in the chat about is there a website or any place that people can see some of the pieces that you've written and some of the thought experiments and the ideas? Do you have a place that you're putting those together, a website or a blog or anything?
I don't, but people can email me. When Red Fox presented my writing last time, I just gave out my email. I think you have it, don't you?
I do. Let's tell you what. Let's let me do a quick search for it, and I'll make sure I'm
If you
getting.
want to put it into the whatever the section beneath the video is,
Yeah,
you can do that if you want.
hang on just a second here. I'll do this here. Oh, come on.
It'll be markfrancisbloom@gmail.com.
Well, there you go. I was just going to try to. Oh, there we go. Copy that and put that right in here. And so you can get in touch with them. And there's so many stuff. If you have interest in somebody helping you kind of put something together or a repository for these, I'm sure that we can hook you up with somebody who is interested in being able to help with that. It's not a difficult process, but I know that if you don't have time for it, like I don't, and the cobbler's children has no shoes, right? I don't even. I spent a lifetime recording other people and doing music, and still don't have hardly anything of my own. So I understand that process very well. But yeah, we can probably get somebody to help you to coordinate these things, collate them, and publish them if you're interested in that.
Yeah, one of the things I want to look into further is I've mentioned to you loads of times lucid dreaming.
Yes.
Because I lucid dream and you're interested in it, and I think you mentioned your wife is.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people in the live chat are also interested in it. So I've started trying to put together some kind of framework for it. I sent it to you, the basic one I've got at the moment.
Yes.
For categorizing the different, for lack of a better term, entities that you interact with.
In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do if you're okay with it. If you're amenable to it, I can take all the stuff that you have given me so far and at least put it up in like a Dropbox folder and make that available. So if you're okay with that, I'll take all those things, and then once this publishes, I'll edit the description and put up a Dropbox, and then you can get to that information. So there you go. Because
Be careful with the one.
No, yeah, I gotcha. Yep.
With
Okay.
Redbox, you know what one?
I know. Yep, I gotcha. I'm all over that.
I'm a little paranoid about that one because of
the repercussions,
related circumstances.
Yeah, the unintended
I'm just a little
consequences.
paranoid. I might be completely wrong, but at the same time, I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, the unintended consequences that came as a result of that.
If people do want that one, I think we're perfectly fine as long as it's between us, personally. I don't think, because you have it, I have it. I've also sent it to Nachiketa.
Yeah.
So, and I've also explained it to Janet Gauthier, who's in the chat. Janet and I have actually spoken over WhatsApp and spoken verbally. I mean, so some people do have that document, but you'll see why if you read it. It's incredibly accusational, speculative, and it would definitely get the channel pulled.
Yeah,
so I don't want to do that to anyone.
Yeah, it's certainly. There are people who would be unhappy about the implications of that. Absolutely. And
I've got more to add to it as well, but that's it. I've not typed it up yet, but it's in my head. It's something I've been thinking about to try and add to and refine a bit, because I understand it wasn't completely accurate, and I wasn't trying to be. It was a bit more of a allegedly could it be type document.
Yeah, and, I think there's nothing wrong with speculation as long as it's laid out that way, and that's where
someone out there does, though.
But
someone disagrees with us.
I'll definitely put this out as well. Again, you have covered so many areas of thought, and that's one reason that we have such great conversations. Is you get into so many areas. I'm like, yes, I'm into that. And, oh, yeah, that's awesome, right? So again, we go into dreaming. It's a whole different area of conversation, and yet it is tangentially related to these other things, because there's this interconnectedness of all things. And so both wanting you to continue your work and these ideas and hypotheses, but also kind of put out the call to those others who are here now listening to the program, whether live or if you listen to it later, is if you have ideas like this and you want to share them, or that you're speculating on certain things, absolutely send them along. I know Nemo has done that as well. There's been a variety of people who have sent me ideas and thought pieces, some of their own, some of other people, and asked me what I thought of that. But this is the kind of thing that I think I'm excited about, is that when we begin to put these things together, again, each of these are pieces of the puzzle. And whether we're close or even really far off, one of the things we can do is through process of elimination. That's part of the abductive reasoning process, is to use both deductive reasoning, crossing off the list things that cannot be, and inductive reasoning, inferring what might be based on that. And so as you put these things together into the abductive process, I think we get closer and closer. And this is where, again, I find that we're all very much kind of standing outside the parking lot of the same building, right? And going, what's inside? What is it? What is in there? Again, Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's been a delight having you here. And we're going to have to definitely do it again and more of it. So I think what the next action is that I will put together at least a Dropbox, something that we can, I can at least do some hyperlinks or something that we people can take a look at some of those ideas.
I can send through the files again in one place in an email so that you've got them all in one place. I might have a couple of extra that I haven't sent yet.
Oh, awesome. That'd be terrific. I pulled up right now. I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think. So
I'm also going to edit through my dissertation because I was reading through it yesterday for this, and I realized, first of all, my grammar at the time was terrible. So I'm going to have to re-edit my dissertation and do a modern edit for it. But I'm going to keep all the information the same. But I realized it's quite a good example of what can be done with rhetoric and semiotics, and how you can recycle places, like literal places and spaces. That's what my dissertation was about, how you can use, say, popular music rhetoric to recycle an entire street, Matthew Street, where the cavern is.
Yeah.
It's kind of around that. So I thought I'll edit through that and then I'll send that your way as well.
Perfect. Because, I mean, there has not been a single thing that you have sent me, either in the document or even just conversations via Skype, that has not been not only of interest, but just fascinating to me. I'm like, wow. I
always think I'm crazy.
No, my friend. It is those around you who are crazy. That anybody who isn't fascinated by this stuff, I don't know, not the kind of people I'd want to hang out with, because these are the sorts of things that really, these are the kind of things that float my boat. These conversations.
Normal conversations become a bit benign, don't they?
Oh,
after you start seeing this.
Drab and
not
vapid.
In a mean way.
Yeah, no, they're drab and vapid, and they just, I don't really care about sports ball. It's scripted, right? I don't care who the next emperor is. They're not wearing clothes, right? I don't need to see any of that.
There are 2 teams per city, and they always wear red or blue,
right?
Just like politics,
exactly.
Because it's all purple.
Right, exactly. That's a beautiful example. Again, I would just want to thank you again so much for being a part of this, and I'm so honored that this is your first experience, and that you've been courageous enough to kind of stick your head out.
I was so nervous, and then after about 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, "Oh, this is okay. I'm with my people."
Yeah, it is. It's your people. This is our family. And again, I want to just bring up again. Speaking of family, Mac is out. He's free. He was here in the chat. We were going to do. He was going to do a stream later today, and then it turned out that while he was incarcerated, and again, I think that's illegally, but they put a strike on his channel, preventing him from being able then to stream. So,
goddamn grapplers.
Yeah, I know. It's so annoying. They made it so difficult just for him to get out. They required surety. They wouldn't allow cash. It's like, oh man, it's just ridiculous. So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to go get some breakfast with my beloved bride, and then I'm going to give Mac a chance to get rested up, and then we're going to try to do a stream later today. I think he's okay with that, and then we'll get together and go walk you through some of what his situation is as well. I'll just do a special stream this afternoon where we can kind of catch up with that. I want to hand off to him the generous donations that people have given to help him out with his situation as well, because this is the most amazing group of people, again, I have come across. It is, the Vibe Tribe for sure, Ceiling Fan Man. This is this has become family, especially.
Setting a good example as well. Everyone keep that in mind. I'm not lecturing you, but sometimes when trolls come into the chat, just treat them nicely and they go away. That's what I did to someone who was trolling on, I think, Rose's channel, trying to troll Dave Weiss, a guy called GPS. He was like, everyone was bombarding him with insults. He was bombarding everyone else with insults. And then I just said to him, like, I'm not trying to be funny with you. It's not in my nature. But is it possible that the information you're given could be manipulated by people because it's ran by people? And he responded politely to me. And then when he was leaving the chat, because he was receiving too many insults, he actually, even though Dave Weiss himself was like, this guy's a troll and all of that business, he actually sent me a goodbye message before leaving the chat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes addressing someone as a human being to just pull them out. And again, that's not me lecturing anyone in the chat. This is me saying we could actually navigate these people to us. We could reroute them.
I gotta tell you, I really do agree with that, because I have said the same thing when it comes to masks. If you go spoiling for a fight, you're sure to get one. But when you approach them with compassion and understand how they are, I agree, Bob. Trolls are not human beings, but there are some people who are just
they're not fun.
Yeah, they're
not nice they do. It does irk me when I'm in the chat. Like, I understand why people get frustrated. That's why I say I'm not lecturing anyone. I completely understand that, but for me personally, observing, I've noticed that you never get anywhere when you just bash a troll over the head repeatedly. So I thought I'll try just treating them like a human being, and then he started behaving like one.
Yeah, sometimes it does happen. Many times it won't, but I know for sure that if I get down in wallow with the pigs, I'm definitely going to get muddy, right? So if I can just walk past it and smile at the pig, he can stay there, right? He's happy to stay there. I don't have to get muddy with him. So
you can pull out the banhammer. You should pull an Owen Benjamin.
Yeah,
band.
And I leave that to the mods. That's right. When I get to know people and I trust them, they turn blue in my channel. There's people who have commented. There's so many of them. I'm like, yeah, they're family, right? Why would I prevent people who are family? And if you don't have one yet, I'll get to know you, right? It'll all be good. The quickest way to not get one is to ask for it, because anyway. But with that anyway. So stay tuned. I'll put up a link later today for a conversation with Mac, and we'll kind of walk through what's been going on with him and how this occurred. And I'll again pass along to him you guys' generous donations. But this is what I really I saw immediately when I saw the news reports that they were trying to make an example of him, and I thought, you know what, we will too. If they're going to make an example of him, we will, because this is how we treat family. We do not leave our soldiers on the battlefield. We're going to send in the cavalry and go get them. And so again, it doesn't matter whether you agree with Mac's methods, or even we don't all have the same ideas, but we're all on the same team, right? And so the ones that I toss out right away are those who attack other people. So those who claim to be in the truth community, who start attacking others and calling them shills, or they call demonic and all this sort of stuff. Again,
Satanists.
Yeah, exactly. I don't pay any attention to them. I don't name them. It's like, yeah, exactly. They're under bridges. I don't give them any of my energy. Right? I'm just not going to do that. But I just ignore them. That they're not part of family, and I just toss them to I throw them out the airlock. If there was space, that would be my favorite part.
If there was space, I think you're lying, Baldini. I don't think space exists.
Well, I'm waiting for my shill check to come in. It's long delayed. I'll tell you that for sure. Yeah, but exactly. So in any case, Mark, it's been a delight talking with you. And again, I'll put your email address in the chat again. Just kind of spam it in here real quick. And so people can get in touch with you. And of course, you can reach me at unintended.consequences3@gmail.com. I still have some I do not consent stickers that I can get to you, as well as some that say in the masquerade, MASK. And I'm looking at perhaps doing 2 new stickers. One that says, because I've been saying lately, especially in regards to the situation with Mac, is fuck the fucking fuckers. And you can display that proudly. And the other one is my favorite sort of pseudo-Latin phrase that I did a long time ago, and I had it at my desk for years, said nolo con copulatus, loosely, fuck with me not. So we've got that going for us, which is nice. So with that having been said, again, thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been a little bit longer program than typical, but of course, even now I don't want to stop. I just want to keep going. No, don't apologize at all, because like I said, I don't want to stop at all, because this is so really amazing talking to you. And I just love the way that you think and the way you explore things. And so it's unbounded, right? You're not limited by by the boxes that we're told to look in. You just go, hey, let's go blue sky. What can we do? And I love this tabula rasa idea of just starting fresh
I've
with.
always been an outsider. I mean, I'm ginger.
Yeah. Well, as is my son, right? So
I was born into social distancing.
there you go. Yeah, I'm an expert at social distancing. I've been doing this way before, way before they told us to. But anyway, so Mark, it's been so great talking with you. I'll send you a note later. I'm gonna to end the show. What I'm gonna do is drop the call because it interferes. I'm gonna play a little music back on the outro, and it interferes with that. So I'll just I'll say goodbye to you now. I'll send you a note afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Yep, and it's been so great having you here. And again, we'll definitely do it again. Do you have any parting words you'd like to leave with folks, or any parting thoughts that you'd like to leave before you go?
Still enjoy the music you listen to. I enjoy the music I listen to, and I've always listened to. I enjoy it more now that I understand semiotics because it's become more interesting that way, and it's become more subjective. I can now like a song simply because I like it, as opposed to because Bob Dylan wrote it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I know many people get discouraged when they find out that their favorite artists are not what they think they are, right? Or they're all kind of controlled. I think what you kind of get
more focus on the art as opposed to the artist, I guess, is the moral. Just focus a little more on the art, the creation, as opposed to the creator. Not in the overarching sense. I mean the idea of like the music. Pay attention to the music, not the musician.
Yeah.
That's the safest way to go about it, I think.
And that's one of the reasons why, again, I keep just going by the moniker, the Great Baldini, even though a lot of people know who I am. It's like, to me, it's always been that the message is more important than the messenger. I'm just a guy, right? You'd probably be very disappointed if
Bloom is my maternal surname. It's not actually my official surname.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think some people would be very disappointed if they met me in person. They go, "Oh, hey, you're just a guy." It's like, yeah, exactly.
Hey, you're just ginger. Yeah, I'm one of them. We're all the same.
Yeah, right on. So, Mark, thank you again so much. I'm tempted just to start over from the beginning here because you keep throwing me in places. I'm like, oh, let's talk about that. Okay, we'll do it next time for sure. But thanks again so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
I will say genuinely, I love you, man. You're a terrific person, and I love your spirit. I love the way you think and your approach for things and your attitude. It's been terrific having you.
Thank you so much. I love everyone in this community. We're doing something.
Yeah, I think we are. And again, that's what I want to do with Mac is that we're going to make an example out of him and go, we come behind our friends and family, and this is our family. So we're going to stand behind him. All right, so I'll say goodbye to you, my friend, and then we will wrap up here. And then, again, I'll put up a note, and when Mac tells me he's ready, we'll schedule another stream for this afternoon so that we can kind of get an update on his situation as well. It'll just be a special edition for you. So I hope you'll be able to join me again for that. So in the interim, don't forget I'll be back tomorrow morning as usual for Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. That comes to you at early 7 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast. That is 10 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday mornings. And then it is going to be a full episode of Sola Scriptura with Wayne McCrory Jr. of Alchemical Tech Revolution. He will, how long is my brunch? Oh, probably, I don't know, give me 2 hours, something like that, Mac. Just a time to put on some clothes so that I don't get arrested as well. And we'll go out and get some brunch and then come back and I'll hit you up and then we'll schedule something. So if you want to do it now, if you want to throw a time at me, it's coming up on, so I would say probably, how about 1:30? Does that work for you? You're on the West Coast, 1:30? Because I can schedule it now, and then that way everybody knows when it is. If you have a different time you want to use, that's fine too. So 1:30, 2 o'clock, does that work for you? Just give me a time and we'll make it happen. Because it's all about you, Mac. If you're rested and ready to go, so I'll wait to begin this until you tell me, either in the chat or by message. 1:30 is great, perfect. So 1:30 p.m. On the West Coast, I'll put up a note now, and we can come back for that, and we'll give a chance for Mac to tell his side of the story, and see what we can do to help him out and keep the pressure on, so we can say fuck the fucking fuckers. All right, guys, it's been great spending time with you. This has been a delightful conversation. I have super enjoyed it. Mark is a terrific guy and a great thinker. And so I'm so pleased to have him as part of our community, and so honored that he chose to come here first. And so with that, I'll leave you with this is another one from Timeless Journey. That's Joe Ray and myself from, this would be, God, early on, 1992, I think is what this is from. It is called In Your Eyes. And if I can get this to start properly and on time. And this is a rehearsal track that I did with another band in the early 2000s. Thanks again for being here, and I hope you'll join me at 1:30 p.m. West Coast time as we talk to Flat Earth Fucker.
Remember the moment alone. Do you remember a heart left cold? I walk a lonely road until I find forgiveness. Do you remember that feeling inside? Do you remember the one left behind? I'll be there by your side if I could live forever. 'Cause I wanna find forgiveness, forgiveness in your eyes. I wanna live forever, forever in your eyes. I wanna see heaven, wanna see heaven in your eyes. Do you remember the promises made? Do you remember the one who was betrayed? Trying to show the way to live forever. Do you remember the trust that was made? Do you remember the tear wiped away? I'm waiting for the day that I see you in heaven. 'Cause I wanna find forgiveness, forgiveness in your eyes. I wanna live forever, forever in your eyes. I wanna see heaven, I wanna see heaven in your eyes. Do you remember the day it began? Do you remember just how far you ran? Trying to save the day and live forever. Do you remember the dream you were shown? Do you remember the peace you'd known?